But we also have with us Nish Acharya, former advisor to the Biden administration, also former director of innovation and entrepreneurship for President Obama. Thanks so much, Nish, for making time for us. Now, we are aware that Tim Walz, his past military service, teaching career, he's been a football coach, and crucially, his Midwest background that could appeal to swing voters in must-win states. But what do you think made the difference in Walz's favor?
So this selection is very much about achievement and continuing the work of the Biden-Harris administration. Tim Walz has accomplished a lot, certainly a lot more than J.D. Vance in his career. He's been a congressman, worked on all the issues that you highlighted. He's been the executive of a very large state, physically very large, but also one that has a global city like Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then a lot of rural areas. And people don't know this, but the Minneapolis area is actually home to about 9 Fortune 100 companies in the world. So Tim Walz has actually led with big companies, understands the economy. He's achieved a lot, and he's also managed different communities. So this is continuing the record of Biden and Harris and saying, who's the next person who can achieve great things when the Democrats win in November? And so I think that was the primary driver of the selection of Walz over some of the others who are excellent candidates as well. But I think his record of achievement in a really diverse place is exactly what we want for continuity moving forward.
But Nish, meanwhile, some Democrats are worried that Walz isn't moderate enough to balance Harris's ticket. In fact, Republicans have taken to attacking Harris as an out-of-touch radical liberal, but they've also leveled similar criticisms against Walz. Is this likely to sort of impact their poll prospects when you compare their record to Trump and Vance?
No, I don't think ultimately it will make a difference. I think what people will look at in November is records, and they will look at the ability to steer the United States over the next years over a very difficult period. The economy is going through some ups and downs. There's some wars abroad. And really, they're going to look at it and say, who is qualified as a team to really help the United States come out of this, manage government spending, manage relationships with our allies, and also manage relationships with different communities in the United States. I think the other ticket is very focused on its base and what it can do to mobilize its base. With the selection of Walz, we see somebody who represents rural Minnesota originally, a very different base than traditional Democrats. So I think ultimately voters are concerned about the economy. They're concerned about world affairs, and they're going to look at this team and say, who's fit and ready to lead? And I think that was all about the selection. I think it makes Vice President Harris even stronger as a candidate to have somebody with the executive level experience. And, for folks in India who don't know, the governor chief minister dynamic is the same, but the governor has a lot more authority and independence in the U.S. system. So he really was the chief executive of his own state, and that carries a lot of weight.
Right. Also, in the run-up to November, what do you think are some of the top challenges that Kamala Harris and Mr. Walz will have to face?
Well, the biggest challenge they're going to have is that we continue to have a divided country that follows its own news sources and therefore isn't always sure what the real truth is. And then secondly, we are in a period of economic uncertainty. And so to continue the agenda that Biden and Harris set around electrification, around new infrastructure, around increasing ties to countries like India, all of those things will require heavy bipartisan support. And it'll be very difficult for them to get that, in this political environment. So I think that's the uphill tailwinds that they'll face, the headwinds that they'll be facing. But at the same time, again, they've done it in different situations as vice president for Harris and as governor for Walz. And so they've worked with the opposition. So I think while it's a difficult time and certainly the economy is, we're wondering which direction it'll go, they have worked in that environment before. So I think dealing with that is going to be their hardest thing. And certainly if the Democrats are able to keep the Senate and add the House, it becomes a lot easier. We don't know if that'll be the case right now. Really, all three chambers are in a dead heat as to who will be in control. And so how that plays out will be equally important as to who wins the presidential race.
Indeed. It's always a pleasure to hear your insight. Thank you so much, Nish Acharya, for joining us on The World 24/7. Well, when Kamala Harris tapped Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as a running mate, The move was welcomed in many quarters of the Democratic Party because of his progressive credentials. He is a vice presidential pick who provides regional balance, and he's expected to serve as the ticket's blue wall whisperer without alienating any of the party's key interest groups or ideological wings.